So you're swiping on Tinder, you match with a baddie, but now you have to chat her up to get a date. What does that conversation look like? Small talk? Flirty bantering back and forth? Role play? I don't know about you, but this is what my ideal conversation looks like.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
But not every interaction is going to be that easy. So if you're a guy who's tired of matching with girls and then fumbling the conversation afterwards because you don't know what the hell you're supposed to be doing, you're in luck. Today, I'm going to walk you through my messaging framework where I convert matches into dates effectively and efficiently. But before we do, please take a quick second to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps the algorithm and motivates me to keep making videos to provide more valuable knowledge for y'all. This one should be a banger, so do me a favor guys, alright? Alright, let's go. First, let me give you some quick context on how this all works. My messaging framework is based off one goal and one goal only: setting up in-person dates. Therefore, every single message that I send is for the sole purpose of getting to this point. So that means I need to gradually escalate to get there. Sometimes it can be as quick as a single back and forth, but for the most part, we'll have to rally for a bit. So I've identified 6 phases that every interaction usually goes through. So at the start of an interaction, we have to talk about openers. Openers are used to do 2 things: get the conversation going and gauge interest. Typically, you'll match with a chick by exchanging likes on the apps. On Bumble, women have to message you first, and you can send an opener with your like on a prompt or a picture through Hinge. Let's get into an example. So for this match from Hinge, I decided to send an opener in response to this prompt. A good opener will be polarizing, relatable, and personalized. There are different methods to doing that, which include joking, teasing, bantering, role-playing, wordplay, memeing, and challenging or expanding on what's presented. You want to match that energy and add a little bit of your own. So here she's talking about having multiple skills as a realtor with some added innuendo. I'm going to expand on it a little bit and add some banter to get it going. So I say, yeah, but can you do touch-up painting on them walls? After sending that message for my like, I can't follow up until she matches me. This is where I'm gauging interest now. If this girl is actually interested in me, not only will she match with me, but she will continue the conversation as well. So I'm going to be looking for what's called indicators of interest, or IOIs. So that's exactly what I got. She gave me a quick and enthusiastic response. She said, I have a wide skill set, winky face, so yes, indeed. This is a very positive response, and she sent it within minutes of my message. So we're off to a really good start. Now I need to build a little bit of rapport as the next step. Let's talk about message timing real quick. Remember, our end goal is to get a date set up. Her response to my opener was sent at 10:38 p.m. near the end of the day. Normally, it's in my best interest to leave this alone and continue the next day. However, because of the overwhelming positive feedback from her response, I decided to respond shortly after to gauge interest again. So, during the report phase, I utilized a strategy called acknowledge and escalate. I want to acknowledge what she says and then roll off of it to move the interaction along. So I implement some wordplay and say, I like that. The realtor keeping it real. And once again, we get some strong IOIs. She responds in minutes, and she's expanding the interaction by asking me a question. By this time, it's around 11 p.m. or so, and I know I won't be able to push for a date this late. So I simply acknowledge and escalate again. She's asking about showing her some spots, so I use this bread and butter line of mine. That's for reading it, and you to find out. It's a very polarizing line, and it really gets interested girls going. So I send this line to end my day, and I'm pleasantly surprised to see her respond minutes after, right before I go to sleep. So the next day comes along, and I'm contemplating resuming the interaction mid-afternoon. I don't send good morning texts or messages during the morning because that's just weird. Like, I barely even know her. Why would I be saying that? But also, I want to be perceived as a busy person who spares time to respond, and I'm not a guy who's just waiting to talk to her all day. By the time I'm getting ready to message her, she messages me first. That's really damn good. So at this point, she has shown me multiple IOIs throughout the whole interaction with enthusiastic and fast responses, and now she's showing some initiative. I want to capitalize on her goodwill because if I don't, she's going to be discouraged from interacting with me anymore, and she's going to move on to someone else. So first, I acknowledge her response, but more importantly, I take the next step to escalate and make a suggestion for a date. This was my plan the entire interaction, and now's the time to make it. Note that I'm making a suggestion and not a concrete plan because at this time, I'm being considerate and I respect her enough to make a decision. And because she has high interest, she enthusiastically agreed and even offered her phone number right away. Normally, we'd have to do another rally where I have to ask for it, but it's always a pleasant surprise when girls help move things along. And so now, we've soft closed both the date and the number. We want to get the phone number because it's a more direct line of communication and it separates us from all the other guys on the app. You can take social media if that's what it comes down to, but I always find that way less effective because of the nature of being used for validation and attention. So that's completely removed when you go for the number. So the next phase is the logistics phase. We agreed to get together, but now we need to hammer out when and where. So first off, we need to reintroduce ourselves through text. She gave me her number, so she's expecting me to text her. So all I need to do in that text is clarify who it is. So I just text her, "Hey you, it's Vincent." She responds, "Hey, when are you free to grab a drink?" Yeah, this girl was doing some work in this interaction. So the main thing we want to do here is collaborate and figure out a time that works for both of us. Normally, I would be the one to inquire about her schedule, but she took the initiative on doing that. So I'm going to respond with some options for availability. So I tell her that I could do the same night or the night after. I normally would not offer same day dates, but she has been continually showing me signs of super high interest, so it seemed viable. So she responds to my options and asks for clarification on both of them. So I spelled them out. We can hit up a bar at 7:30 p.m. or attend an organized event the night after. So she picks option 1, which confirms when, and now we need to decide where. So being the guy and the leader of the interaction, I respect her goodwill and make an executive decision on where to go, which she joyfully agrees to. So because this is a same day date and our last exchange was made hours before the date, there's no need for me to confirm. So I just showed up and we had ourselves a good time. And then just ignore the rest of the text because that's just me fumbling. So let's just do a quick summary of how I conducted this whole interaction. I start with a polarizing and personalized opener and I get positive IOIs as a response. We rallied a bit more that same night with some banter and she reaffirmed her high interest with enthusiastic messages and fast responses. We had one more rally the next day, which reached a high point where I could soft close the date and get the number. So in the following text messages, we hammered out the logistics quickly enough where it was possible to go out on the same day, and then we made it happen. Now this interaction is probably the cleanest interaction as a whole, but it's also not the typical one as this girl had super high interest and took initiative at certain points of the conversation. Now normally it would be up to me to take those steps, and sometimes while I can get a phone number and get off the app quickly in like a day or two, the logistics may take a week to hammer out. So let's go over some more examples to further highlight how effective my framework is and how to deal with common situations. So let's go back to some dating app conversations first. So in this interaction, the girl sends me a like for this prompt of mine. Now this is an IOI, but it didn't start the conversation, so I need to do that. So I refer back to my own prompt and use it as an opener. We get a few good responses through emojis, a targeted response, and an attempt at small talk. I want to keep the conversation's energy where it is, so I send a polarizing response that plays on her words, and I get very good feedback once again, and it ends with a compliment. Most guys would see this and try to return the compliment, but I identify this as the high point to suggest the date. So I use my wit and escalate by suggesting the date while also acknowledging the compliment. Sure enough, it hits, and she knows the deal. So I ask for the number, and I get what I want. In this interaction, I get messaged first because it's Bumble. Now on this app, girls usually choose to message guys they're actually interested in. So any opener can be seen as an IOI to start. So she starts with a compliment on my dimples, and now I need to assume control of the interaction because I don't want to presume that she can lead it where we want to go, which is setting up the date. So getting a compliment to start is a strong IOI. So I don't think about trying too hard with her response, and I simply mirror the compliment and give her some small talk based on her current plans. She gives me a basic answer and reflects the question. Here, I choose to break the repetitive back and forth by acknowledging her question with a response and then asking about her hobby as a tattoo artist. I get an answer and then I respond with a sly suggestion for collabing. She acknowledges what I say positively, but she didn't acknowledge my attempt at soft closing the date. So I doubled down on that while also maintaining the context of the conversation. And she says she's down and gives some detail on bringing her puppy and meeting up on her day off. So the puppy part is irrelevant, screw the puppy, but the second message means we gotta work out logistics. So I just go for the number close here. And just to show you that this framework works with just about anybody, here's an example of an interaction that I did for a client. So I see that this prompt is quite simple. So I look to engage on the keyword travel and create some relatability between the two of them. So I just simply say, I see you got the travel bug too. She gives a very basic response, but that means we can continue the conversation. So I choose to stick to small talk because I can see that English isn't her strong suit. And I just simply ask her what her favorite place is that she's visited, but I also provide an answer so she can't just reflect the question back to me. I get an answer and I choose to acknowledge it with some input and then escalate with the date suggestion. She agrees, asks for the number, and there you go. For logistics, this is probably the most ideal example that I have. So this is after getting the number. So reintroductions text to start, whatever response as long as it's positive, and then we go straight into setting up the date. I suggest the time first, she confirms it, then I suggest the place, she confirms that, and the date's set up. The date is set 2 days ahead, so it's close enough that it doesn't require any additional report. So on the day of, I send my confirmation text. I word it this way to show some confidence by assuming the date instead of being insecure and asking if we're still on. So she confirms it enthusiastically, and then everything after that is just stuff that happens as we're getting ready to meet. And to demonstrate just how locked in you need to be with good text game, I'm going to show you an extended interaction where this girl really made me work for a date, and I had to pull out all the stops. I had to go deep into my bag for this. So I see her prompt that says she goes crazy for ramen, and I just use my light to tell her that I know some spots. She simply matches me, so I have to open her again. So I mentioned a ramen place that is pretty well known in the area to get some conversation going, and she needs to respond or else I'm just gonna move on to someone that's gonna actually engage with me. Fortunately she does, so I acknowledge what she says, and then I escalate by subtly suggesting going there. She has the same feeling, and then she says we should go there together. Nice. So since the conversation hasn't been as vibey as other ones, I decide to conduct logistics within the app. So I simply probe her for her availability. This is the most ideal text for doing that because it shows that I want to plan something soon, but I'm also being considerate in getting her schedule first. We want to take as much guesswork out as possible to maintain the goodwill of the interaction. So she responds that next week is the better play, so I want to know which days work best for that. And she doesn't respond. So I double text her. Again, I use my next message to simply pick a day and she can accept or counter with another option. She says, okay, so that soft closes the date. I ask for her number and we close the app combo to move on to texting. So looking back at when this happened, I got the number on a Friday and we soft closed the date the following Monday. So there's a few days in between where I need to hash out the final detail, being time, and converse with her enough to maintain the rapport we've built. So I send my reintroductory text and she responds with, so. That didn't feel like an IOI, so I need to build out some rapport again before going to logistics. I just ask about her plans for the weekend and she reveals that it's her birthday. Now, my response here is key as all I do is just acknowledge it with the two of us in mind and then I leave her undisturbed for the rest of the day to maintain goodwill. The next day, I pick the time and then make it real clear where the date should be. She counters with a very odd time, which I simply agree to, and she confirms the date. But then the next day, which is presumably a Sunday, she gives me this long paragraph that basically just says that she needs to reschedule. I simply have to take it on the chin and be cool with it. So I just say, okay, let me know when you're free. And I put the onus back on her. I'm not trying to double text her again. She gets back to me 2 days later and says that she can do Thursday or Friday. And she also mentions her preference for the early evening. So being mindful of that, I suggest 5:30 the next day. She retorts going 15 minutes later, which is no big deal to me. She says okay. So day of, I just send a confirmation text in the afternoon and I get a good response to it. And then everything else after that is just ETA checks. Cool, so that's my messaging framework in action, and I hope you've gained a good understanding in how it all works. Now, I have a few more points to make. This will all only work on women that are interested enough to meet with you. You will not be able to converse with women who don't match with you, and conversations with low interest women will fizzle out quickly. If they are on the same page of wanting to meet up with you, this is how you do it. If not, you'll filter them out. Sometimes they'll make it real easy for you, but other times you have to be persistent without being needy. And if this all seems complicated to you, let me boil it down, alright? So, you match with a chick that you find attractive, and you want to take them out, right? Well, you need to lead the conversation one step at a time to get to that point, and you need to make the whole experience enjoyable for the both of you. So you send them an opener that shows some mindfulness, and then you wait until you get a positive response. Then once you do, you take what is given and then utilize it to create a good vibe. Once you do a few back and forths and it reaches a high point in the conversation, you simply use what's being talked about in the conversation as a reason to suggest a date. And then she'll decide whether or not she wants to do that. And if she agrees, you simply set up the details either within the app or through texting. You don't need to be a complete Riz Lord to do these things. You just need to be a man with a plan. And having this plan is exactly why my framework is effective and efficient. I'm not being a pen pal for days or weeks. I'm getting numbers within days. And if the possibility for a same day date is there, I take it. I'm simply executing and going with the flow. And if the women I talk to want to help me move things quickly, then I get it done. There are a few other intricacies such as response timing and wording that I could probably cover, but it's probably best I do it in another video on advanced texting. Let me know if you guys want it. And that's all for now on this topic. Messaging and texting as a skill is something that you need to have locked down if you want to succeed in online dating. It took me a very long time to figure this out and develop my own way of doing so. But once I did, things became indefinitely better. So if you're watching this and you want to get more dates set up but you're afraid of following those baddies in your queue, well, I got something for you. I'm going to be opening up a private channel in my Discord server where I will be personally coaching people on exactly what to say so that they can set up dates the way that I do. You post where the combo is and I'll run it for you. Why worry about crafting up the perfect line or response when you can get someone who's mastered it to do it for you? Because it's the holidays, I'll have it available for a special price for a limited time. Links down below. I hope to see some of y'all there. And as always, if you watched this point, then I would appreciate you giving this a like and subscribing if you haven't already. It helps the algorithm and encourages me to continue making more bangers for you guys. Leave a comment if you have any remarks or questions. Let me know what you guys think I should cover next. And join the Basecamp Discord for a community based on self-improvement topics such as fitness, dating, and fashion. If you want to consult me on dating or fitness coaching, there's also links for that too, and don't miss out on my limited time offer. That's all for now. Stay based, y'all. Bye-bye.